I don't remember if this is where I had my camera last time, but I suppose this'll have to do. Kind of recline the seat a little bit. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Hello. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining me here on this fantastic Thursday. Oh, by gosh, by golly. It's time for mistletoe and holly. If you are a celebrator of Christmas, it's, Christmas season is just kicking off here on December 4th. For those of you who don't celebrate Christmas, of course, happy holidays to you as well. Man, oh man, I'm very excited. We are headed off to the one and only Disneyland tomorrow. It was my sister's birthday yesterday, and I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little hungover. But we had a good time. It was a really, really good time, and the only reason I bring this up is because she was the one that I recommended, or she was the one that recommended that I read today's book. The book we're going to be discussing in today's live stream here. There by Tommy Orange. For those of you who have never watched one of these, this is a show called What You Readin' For, where we talk about books that I have read, and this is actually the last of our backlog. I managed to do a couple of episodes in relatively rapid succession, a couple days / weeks apart, and we finally caught up to where I am currently, which right now I'm reading what is going to be the next book for the show, Where Men Win Glory by Jon Krakauer. Enjoying that quite a bit. I'm about halfway through that, John. And so I highly encourage you guys to read Where Men Win Glory so that you can sort of participate in the next episode. Which might it might happen sometime by the end of December. Or it might happen sometime in January, but after that, I'm going to be embarking on the epic grand quest of reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. It's the first book in the Stormlight Archive series, which I have for years been told is a must-read for fans of fantasy. And it sat on my shelf for a while. I got a copy at a used bookstore, and it's like 1,300 pages long or somewhere in that ballpark, so I've just kind of been like, I don't know if I have it in me to do all of that, but I think it's finally time. We're in the winter months where all you really want to do is sit there in a warm blanket and read a dang book. So what better time to read an absolute monstrosity such as a Brandon Sanderson novel? So I'm probably going to be dedicating the better part of December and January to reading that. I might not even be done with it by then, if I'm being completely honest. But we'll see how things shake out. But we're not here to talk about Brandon Sanderson. We're here to talk about our boy Tommy Orange and his novel There. Sorry, I was just reading I didn't realize this was I've read this entire book, but I didn't realize that on the front cover there, right here, if you can see it, it's barely legible, a quote by Margaret Atwood, of all people, an astonishing literary debut for the novel There by Tommy Orange. And boy, oh boy, sorry, I'm getting texts. It is an astonishing literary debut. The fact that this is Tommy Orange's first novel, or at least the first novel that he's published, is genuinely shocking, because it is so dang good. It is a very, very good book, and I've just learned the other day that there is actually a sequel to this book, which I absolutely will be reading at some point. I don't remember what the title is, but at some point we will try to get that read. But yeah, so going into this novel, my sister read it, and she was like, "Dude, you have to read this book." And I was like, "Okay." And so she gave me her copy, which is the one that I have. And it took me a few months to get around to it, just because I was reading other stuff. I had a huge pile of books to get through, which I still do. And so I was like, I'll get to that at some point. And I didn't know anything about it. I had no idea what it was about. She didn't tell me anything about it. She was just like, you need to read this. And so I went into this novel completely blind and completely clueless, which honestly, for most things, whether that be video games, movies, novels, that's kind of the way I prefer it. I kind of like going in not knowing anything and just letting the thing present itself to me. And what awaited me when I read There by Tommy Orange is I keep wanting to say astonishing because that's the quote on the front of the book, but it really is like an astonishing look at what it's like to be a Native American in the United States in the current year. And I'm just going to use the term Native American because I'm not 100% sure what is the appropriate term to refer to that group by. I have heard at various times that Native Indians is an acceptable term, but Indians, just in general, that term rubs me the wrong way because it's, a white person calling an entire group of people something that they are not. That the Indian is the name that we gave to them when we stole their land, and so it just feels weird to say that. I'm gonna say Native Americans, and I don't mean to offend anybody, and please let me know in the comments, if there is, if you are a member of that group and are like, hey, actually, it'd probably be better if you just said this. I would love to know what that is, but I'm gonna say Native Americans for now. And Tommy Orange is himself a Native American, and he I believe has a master's in I think like Native American studies or Native American cultural studies or something akin to that. And so he is a scholar of this field. And one of the things I think this book tries to convey is the idea that the modern American perception of the Native American is largely constructed from images from the past. And that, a lot of people, when they hear the term Native American or they think about Native groups, they're thinking about people that lived hundreds of years ago. Or they're thinking about, groups that live on reservations and live out in the country and, are kind of rural, and this book is kind of presenting the image that, like, no, there's a ton of Native Americans that live in giant American cities, in this case, Oakland, California, and are living in the modern world and have had to adapt to, modern society. And a lot of the book deals with kind of the expectations of a Native American, both by, white people or just people in general of them, but also Native Americans' expectations of Native Americans. and how those expectations can morph a person's personality, their sense of personhood, their sense of identity. Some really, really complex stuff, some complex ideas at work in this book. I don't remember if I gave this book a 4 or a 5 on Goodreads. In my opinion, even if I gave it a 4, I think in retrospect it deserves a 5. Because again, number one, not only is this his first novel and it's shockingly good for that fact, but also, once again, and I will reiterate this time and time again, my favorite books are the ones in which, even if they're fictional, or if they're works of fiction, which I'm not entirely certain, some of the stuff in this book feels pretty real, so I wouldn't be surprised if at least some of it was pulled from real life. Even if it is a work of fiction, it is able to present you with thought-provoking ideas, thought-provoking concepts. It pulls from you sorry, I'm drawing a blank here on what I'm trying to get at. I just prefer books that make you think. I don't like books that are just kind of like purely kind of plot driven, I guess you could say. I mean, sometimes I do. Dang work radio. So, even though this book has a plot, of course, a big part of the plot really is like introducing you to and tracking the adventures of various characters, and from their perspectives you get little excerpts and little rivers of thought that make your own brain churn. They set your own mind to thinking. So what does it get you thinking about? Well, it gets me thinking about mostly I think it gets me thinking about how my perception of Native Americans was incorrect, which, like, surprise, surprise, a dumbass white dude, like, I don't think that's shocking to anybody that my perception would be skewed when it comes to this group and the challenges they face. But, it did kind of, like, shift my perspective, and I consider myself to be a fairly sort of, what's the word? A fairly aware person, I guess, when it comes to these kind of social issues, or the social studies of various groups. I consider myself relatively aware, but even still, your perception is skewed by who you are. And so I think that when I think about my thoughts on Native Americans prior to reading this book, it probably was largely one of that perception was largely one of what I just described, where it's like you think about people on reservations, and of course, like you meet a Native American a person of Native American lineage every now and again, and it's like, well, no shit, they live in cities too, just like everybody else. I feel like no matter what I say here, it's going to come off as kind of racist, and I'm really trying to not do that. But it's just kind of, that's because of my heritage and my lineage and the privilege that I enjoy. That's just kind of the way things are. But I'm really trying to just give my honest take on this. And I my formative years, my kind of teenage, high school, formative kind of age was spent in rural California. And I grew up those years were spent in the foothills of California, and there is quite a bit of Native American folks there. I believe I don't know if it's the Yokuts tribe. I can't remember what tribe is predominant there in the foothills. Comanche, maybe, because Comanche Lake is there. It might be the Comanche tribe, but either way, what I'm getting at is that I knew quite a few Native American folks, and a lot of them did live on the reservation there, and the school bus would go by the reservation and pick up kids from there and stuff. And so that, I think, again, and that is influenced by where I lived, who I am, it colored the way that I thought about Native Americans. And this book, I think, set the record straight a little bit on my own misconceptions. So that's kind of a large portion of what the book got me kind of mulling over. But let's talk about the actual plot of the book. So this book kind of it's interesting because it's not a very long book. It's a solid 300 pages, maybe a little bit less. It's really not very long at all. But somehow it's able to transport you to the perspectives of various characters, maybe a dozen, maybe eight or 10 characters, somewhere in that ballpark, like a little less than a dozen characters, and gives you their perspectives at various points in the book. And it literally shifts from perspective to perspective, different characters, and you see kind of just different types of folks living out the life of a modern Native American, and in specific, or it kind of revolves around Oakland, California. It doesn't all take place in Oakland, but and that's interesting too, being from California and having been to Oakland many times. Just kind of while I won't claim to relate to every experience that happens in the book, certainly some of the seedier kind of crime elements that are discussed in the book, I wouldn't claim to have any knowledge of, nor the experiences of Native people. But I think that there is something distinctly Californian about these characters and what Tommy Orange is kind of illustrating. Oakland is a very unique place. It's very close to San Francisco, which is a huge, humongous, sprawling U.S. city. One of my favorite cities. It might even be my favorite city, San Francisco. San Francisco rocks. The history, it's got its problems, obviously, like any American city or any city in general. But the atmosphere there, just I can't even describe some of the amazing times that I've had in San Francisco. It's a great place to be. Also a huge 49ers fan. And Oakland is kind of it's kind of like the messed up little brother of San Francisco. It's kind of the little brother that never got his shit together. And that's obviously due to a myriad of reasons. The extraction of wealth from places like like Oakland is sometimes pretty astonishing. So Oakland is a very unique place. It's next to one of the richest, cities in the country and one of the most populous, but it's kind of got its own little flavor to it, that is fairly unique. Talk to anybody from Oakland. Daveed Diggs, who was in Hamilton, and he is also in the noise rap or noise hip hop group Clipping, which I absolutely love. Clipping is like one of my favorite artists. They put out a movie about Oakland, or set in Oakland, and kind of like giving their spin on Oakland. It's a very unique place, and you ask anybody from there, it's just got its own little vibe to it. But you have various characters that are experiencing their own struggles, and the struggles that they face a lot of times have to do with poverty. No, not always directly, but certainly most of the characters in this book are not like extremely wealthy, and many of them are struggling with drugs and alcohol. They're struggling with family members that have issues with drugs and alcohol, or are engaged in organized crime, or you have maybe my favorite kind of series of events in the book is tracking these two sisters that are in the 60s or 70s. They are part of the I believe it was AIM, if I'm not mistaken, the American Indian Movement, that kind of like took over Alcatraz, or yeah, I think it was Alcatraz. But they basically moved into this facility that was like abandoned, and I could be presenting the history wrong here, by the way. I studied this this period of history in a class at one point, and that discussed like the events that led to Leonard Peltier being arrested and all of that. So the kind of the broader American Indian Movement stuff. But so these two sisters are moved there by their mother, and they experience a little bit of growing up in a kind of brutal way. I don't want to go into details, but it becomes pretty clear that one of them was sexually assaulted by a boy that was there as well. And they just go through some struggle, like tracking them through the years from then to where they are now. One of them has a daughter, and the daughter has children of her own, but the daughter commits suicide largely because of her struggle with drugs. And the other sister has to take care of these kids because the sister who had the daughter who committed suicide is so racked with pain because of this experience that she is like a lifelong, or maybe not lifelong, but like she struggles with alcohol addiction because of this. And her journey through just like struggling with addiction and sobriety, and she ends up meeting up with a gentleman who got her pregnant, and then he kind of like took off on her. um, that series of events was so hard. The book was so hard to put down during this telling of that tale, because it was just so real. It was just so vividly real. The absolute plight of these women, and it's hard to describe, and especially again as a man, trying to convey my empathy and my ability to put myself in a woman's shoes, because I think that's quite difficult. But the moment where, I believe it's Jackie. I can't remember which sister. But some of their names are a little foggy to me, just because I just switching the perspective between all the characters. It was kind of hard to keep their names straight in my head. That's one complaint about the book that I have. Some of the names are hard to remember, just because it's like you're switching perspectives so often, and so between so many different characters. But the moment that she walks into an AA meeting and she realizes that the person running this AA meeting is a guy that got her pregnant and then left, who is also struggling with addiction, of course. You know, he's an addict in recovery. But the emotions that she is undergoing at that moment were so real to me, and it felt like I was there. Like, it felt like I was in that moment with her. And you know, and then she, after the meeting, she talks with this guy, and he's trying to trying to reconnect with her, which, you know, over the course of the rest of the book, they kind of reconnect a little bit. They end up going to Oakland together for this big kind of Oakland powwow that is happening, and that is kind of the central sort of event and central, like, climax of the book, is this powwow that's happening in Oakland. But in the moment where they reconnect, or they reunite, he's trying to, it feels like he's kind of trying to brush off what happened, because he's just like, oh my gosh, like, I haven't seen you in years and stuff. And this is so rage inducing to her, and to me as a reader. I was just like, it's like borderline horror. Like, it's like borderline a horror moment, where it's just what you're reading about is so viscerally disgusting that, I mean, for some readers it might, I mean, definitely it can potentially be pretty triggering, and so I think some readers at that point might be compelled to put the book down. But for me, it was so intense that I could not stop reading. I think I read like 70 pages in one night or something like that. So passages like that, I think, are ones that will stick with me from this book, certainly. But getting back to the powwow that happens in Oakland, essentially I would say the crux of the book is centered around the fact that a few ne'er-do-wells are going to attempt to rob this powwow, because the powwow has a kind of like ghost dance competition, where, you know, if you show your dancing abilities and your Native American garb that they all wear when they're dancing, you know, whoever gets ranked the highest or whatever is going to get, like, I think it's like $50,000. And so these, like, criminals are like, dude, that's a lot of money. Let's go. There's not, you know, they were like, well, that's easy money. Let's go take it. Through one event, or, you know, one mishap or another, when they get there, and they all have guns. When they get there, it leads to this like shootout that kills, or it is implied that several characters die, like several characters that you have spent lots of time with in the book either die or are on their way to dying. And this is an event where like characters are reuniting, and like the guy who was running the AA meeting, who came to Oakland for the powwow, he also had another son, and that son is also going to this powwow and knows and has like reconnected with his father through Facebook, and so they're going to reunite at this powwow. And so it's, although it's fucked up and completely messed up, and a somewhat trepidatious gathering, there is kind of this impression of like maybe things will be okay. Like maybe some of these people can form little weird but potentially happy families through all of this adversity. You know, some good might come from all of this. And that's when the shooting happens. And so I get the impression that Tommy Orange's perspective here, or one that he, or the overall kind of message that he's trying to send with this series of events, is that the struggle for peace and freedom for Native Americans seemingly never ends. You know, in this event where it's not even white settlers that are coming in and killing Native Americans. It's Native Americans that are coming in and doing this. But the circumstances by which these individuals ended up in their specific circumstances all flow downstream from the white settlers coming to the United States and robbing these people of their way of life. So it's kind of like using this horrific event that happens in the modern day to illustrate that this shit never ends because of the horrors of the past. That is my impression, at least. And I'm very intrigued to see what happens in the sequel, because it's left relatively unclear as to who actually dies and who lives. They kind of just go through the shooting, and the process of several of these characters acknowledging that they're probably about to die. And it's pretty graphic as well. Like it doesn't pull any punches when it comes to the massacre that is occurring. And so, some of the characters, it appears, make it to the hospital, but you're not really sure what their fate is. So yeah, I will definitely be checking out the sequel if I can get my hands on a copy. I think it's like out relatively recently, within the last like 3 years or so. I'm trying to think of if there's much else I want to say here. Yeah, it's here on the back. It's saying it's being hailed as a modern classic. I think that is a fair accolade to lay upon this book. It certainly reads like something It reads like literature. Like, it reads like something you would read in school, if that makes sense. And that makes it sound kind of boring, actually, now that I think about it. What I mean is that the skill on display, the skill of writing on display, as well as um, the messages conveyed, I think turn it into something like a modern classic, an instant classic, or whatever. It's well worth reading. I think everybody should read this book. I think especially white people, but even I think that a good amount of value might be taken from this book, even by Native Americans who might be experiencing some of the struggles that are faced by characters in the book, because a lot of the drama and a lot of the conflict in this book come from the internal struggle of characters who are coming to terms with who they are, not only as individuals, but as part of this larger culture. You know, so much of who Native Americans were before settlers showed up has been erased deliberately, and continues to be erased, by the way. I feel like a lot of people, and it might be taken from what I was just saying, that that this is over, or that this all has concluded. But that's not really the case. Anybody who has read Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann you would know that this genocide is still happening. It's still going on, like, even to this day. Mistrials or not mistrials, but through the justice system, cops failing to investigate, murders of Native American women, and like all these different things. Still even today, groups in certain states fighting for the ability to teach Native American cultural studies or ethnic studies, are still having to struggle against the system that is dominated by white supremacists. Let's just face it. Let's just call it what it is. This battle is still being fought on so many fronts, and so I don't want to convey the idea that this shit is over by any means. In the context of that, so many of the characters in this book are kind of contemplating what it means to be a Native American, and to have so much of this baggage associated with who you are and your lineage. Again, as I was getting back to what I was saying in the beginning, the expectations placed upon people. Am I supposed to dress a certain way? Am I supposed to act a certain way? Am I supposed to ignore this history because it's painful, or because nobody wants to hear about it anymore? Am I supposed to embrace it fully? Even sometimes that feels false. I think a lot of the struggle of this book is like imposter syndrome, I guess is maybe the way to put it. Like, people that are half white, half Native American, or half black, half Native American, feeling like, well, am I still allowed to celebrate this? Am I, is my blood pure enough to be part of this group? These are things that these characters struggle with deeply. So I think that a lot of value could be taken by modern Native American readers from this book, because they might be feeling the same way, and they might, from this book, gather an understanding that they're not alone in this particular struggle. And that was a big revelation to me too, I suppose, is that, and I don't think this is unique to Native Americans. I think a lot of groups, even to a lesser degree, white people, kind of think about, if they're self-aware enough, kind of like think about the implications of who they are and where they've come from, and should that be celebrated? Should that be something that you focus on as a person, as an individual? I have heard. Now I'm really treading into waters of things that I maybe shouldn't be commenting on, but this is my YouTube channel. I'm going to comment on it. My impression is that some people who are of mixed descent, shall we say, struggle with the identity crisis of like, do I belong to one group or do I belong to the other? And in reality, it's like, well, you belong to both groups. So whatever way you feel about it is valid. But certainly that internal struggle is one that can create huge amounts of strife in someone's life. There's a line in a Tyler the Creator song where, and I can't remember. I don't think Tyler the Creator is, I think he's just black. I don't think he's like half black, half white. But there's a line in one of his songs where he says, too black for the white kids, too white for the blacks. Like, acting in certain ways that are considered acting like a white person or acting like a black person. It's something that can create in other people's minds a perception of you that you don't belong in this camp because you act like that. When in reality it's like, well, you belong to that group because you're part of that group. That is your heritage. And I guess for white people this would probably come in the form of like white guilt, I guess, at least for some white people, feeling like this isn't something I necessarily do, just because I think it's a little it can come off as a little disingenuous sometimes, I think. But white guilt in the form of like apologizing for the sins of your ancestors, or trying to overemphasize how not racist you are, sometimes can come off a little, disingenuous, I guess. So I try not. I'm specifically talking a lot about this in this episode just because this was my experience of reading this book. But in general, I tried to kind of stay away from stuff like that, because it's just like, just try to treat people the way they want to be treated. Like, you know what I mean? No one, like, people don't need special treatment from people who look like me just by virtue of like who they are and who I am, people don't need to be coddled, I guess. But certainly internally, I think I definitely think a lot about like the heritage, I guess, of my family or families that look like mine, and being a student of history really teaches you that this entire nation has been built on the blood of various minority groups. Oh man, this is a lot to unpack. This is a real doozy of an episode. I hope everyone who's watching can understand that I'm trying to go about this with as much respect as possible, and nothing but peace and love from this side of the camera. So in closing, There by Tommy Orange, a fantastic novel. One that I think is a must-read. Absolutely. This is going on the must-read list, along with 100 Years of Solitude. What else? Have I classified anything else on this show as a must-read? I think Under the Banner of Heaven might be a must-read, honestly. But that might just be because I'm reading Jon Krakauer again. But yeah, it's a great book, and one that I think I got a lot out of. So, I appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Please make sure to like it if you liked it. Please make sure to comment. Let me know what you think of There by Tommy Orange. Comment some book recommendations if you feel like it. Make sure to subscribe so that you get notified every time I go live. Let's see what's coming up for this channel. So there was a video by good buddy Elder Goblin, Jordan, I think his name is, on YouTube. He just dropped a video where he shows off all of his dice, like his RPG dice. I think I might do one of those. I have quite a bit of dice, and I think some of them are pretty beautiful, and I'd like to share kind of some of the tales that have been graced by these dice. I think that might be a fun video to make. People like dice. I like dice. What else is upcoming? I'm hoping that the solo play series, solo play RPG series that I've been planning, called Played Out. I believe that I'm hoping that I can get a couple episodes out in January. That's my goal. Playing the Black Oath Entertainment game Riftbreakers 2nd edition. So that's coming up. Of course, new episode of House of Morticius on Saturday. Saturday morning, every Saturday morning, if I can help it. There's been a couple episodes that I've had to upload late, but hoping that will come out on time. Or well, this episode is already scheduled, but the following episodes might be. We're in Disney for the next couple days, so we'll see how much I can get done. What else? So yeah, Jon Krakauer, Where Men Win Glory is the next episode of What You Reading For. After that, The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I'm not sure what I'm going to read after that. I've kind of been thinking maybe In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Possibly. I don't 100% know that that's the next one, but I'll let you guys know, of course. But I've kind of been bandying that about as maybe being the next read. Still planning on streaming more Red Dead 2 here pretty soon. I haven't had a lot of time to play, but as soon as I do, I'll be back in the saddle. Back in the saddle again for that. I think that might be just about it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys around.